Hello, everyone. Let's give it another minute to see if the rest of the board members join us. Oh, there's Steve. There's Andrew. It looks like we have a quorum. There we go. Kate, can you see? I can only see like 5 at a time. Can you see all of them?
Yes. If you go under participants.
I'm just trying to see if we have Danielle. I can't see. I see Steve Roundtree. I'm not sure if Steve Carew is on.
I did see Steve Carew, but now I'm not seeing him on this list, but I did see Steve Carew earlier.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Andrew.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
All right. I mean, I think we have quorum even if we don't have Danielle or maybe Jonathan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think, yeah. Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. Kate, can you call the roll?
Yes. Steve Carew. Rhea Ortner.
I'm here.
Barb Hart.
Yes.
Andrew Duart.
Here.
Ron Mitchell.
Here.
Steve Roundtree.
Here.
Catherine Vallon.
Here.
Danielle Kraus. Jonathan Baumhofer. All right, thank you.
And Kate, sorry, this is Steve Carew.
There you are. I saw you earlier. Steve.
Yeah,
Carew.
I was having a issue, so I rebooted.
All right, great. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Hearing and seeing none, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Great, thank you. And sorry, I think Danielle just joined us and I heard her voice in there.
Danielle, did you join us?
Yeah.
Yes, I have
Oh.
joined you. Yay.
Great, thank you.
Great. And Kate, can you call the roll on the consent agenda?
Yes. Steve Carew.
Yes.
Rhea Ortner.
Yes.
Barb Hart.
Yes.
Andrew Duart.
Yes.
Ron Mitchell.
Yes.
Danielle Kraus.
Yes.
Steve Roundtree.
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. Now I would like to ask if there are any public comments on non-agenda items. Anyone from the public is welcome to comment here. Hearing and seeing none, let's move on to the next agenda item. The first agenda item is an action item, and that is the Nederland Fire Protection IGA funding resolution. And it looks like Kate will be giving us all the information on that.
All right, good evening, everyone. So last month, you'll remember our discussion item was about funding the IGA between the DDA and the Nederland Fire Protection District. And you all approved it coming back this month with the resolution. So tonight we have resolution 2022-17 and the funding of the NDDA Ned Fire Protection District IGA. During the 2022 budget process, the Nederland Fire Protection District IGA funding was approved by the Nederland Downtown Development Authority Board and the Board of Trustees. The attached resolution is needed to authorize the funding and make it available for expenditure. The attached resolution is for your review and vote this evening. And the question for the board is, does the NDDA board support resolution 2022-17 and the funding of the Ned Fire Protection District IGA?
Great, thanks, Kate. And does anyone have any questions or comments about this? These are all, a lot of these are coming back to us after already being before us. So I don't know if we want to go all the way around the circle or just ask if there are specific comments.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It says about or approximately 23,000, some number and an exact number of cents. That's an exact figure. Why is it an approximated number? I thought we committed an exact figure.
So the figure is based from your packet last month. The figure is based on a calculation from the text statements. And so that's how we budgeted 30,000 was what we had talked about for the year. It's not to exceed that because we have to do the calculation to make sure, and we hadn't done it in 2 years is what we discovered. So we wanted to make sure there was enough money. And so that's where you get that exact number, is that it's the number that it was the calculation that was determined in the IGA.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kate. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about this item?
No comment.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the exact figure be the allocation to the fire department of 23,600 or whatever it was and change.
Second.
And Kate, would you call the roll? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Steve Carreau,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes?
Andrew Duer,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. That brings us to the next agenda item, which is Big Springs Improvement Funding Resolution. And we'll also
Barb,
be
sorry to interrupt. Someone in the audience has their hand up. Kathleen
where do you?
Chipai has her hand up.
Where?
Kathleen has a hand up on her little icon.
Kathleen,
Hand raised.
do you need to call in? I remember you normally do a call in when you have comment.
Let's see.
My assumption would be yes, because I don't see an email
Oh, now I see. Okay.
from her. Sometimes she emails a comment too, but
Right.
she's trying to call in.
She is trying to?
That would be my assumption.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, should we move forward, and then if she calls in, we can give her an opportunity to speak?
Hello.
There you are.
Sorry about that. Normally chat is open and I can communicate with you. I don't know why it's turned off. I wish that was available. But I had raised my hand prior to the last vote. And I did have a comment. It's not really a comment, it's a question. And I'm a little confused at why NDDA tax money is being spent outside the taxing district when it comes to the fire department. So that was just my question. And I'm now going to request that chat be open back up so that people like me, I can't call while sitting in front of my computer because I'll give you guys all mad feedback. So I have to go to a different section of my house and I can't see the computer or hear anything until I call in. So, yeah, that's my comment. My question is, why are we spending money outside of the taxing district? That's all.
Hi, Kathleen, this is Kate Massengale. So this money does actually get spent in the district. This money is providing inspections, is paying for staff time from the Fire Protection District to provide inspections within the Downtown Development Authority District. Is that helpful?
She ended her phone call, so she won't be able to
Oh.
respond. I can speak to the chat. So the feedback that was received from a prior meeting that was that the chat was distracting and does not contribute to the engaged dialogue that would occur during public or the dialogue that would occur during public comment. And therefore the request was, was to leave it off like we do the Board of Trustees.
Thanks, Miranda.
Yeah, thanks, Miranda. They turn it off on all of the meetings that I attend now for the county and everything. So it is a distraction for me personally. And I know that that was a comment from several people. So
it's actually also a legal concern. It does not allow for, people who are call-in users, they can't see what's happening in the chat. And so it creates an open meeting concern. There are some advisory boards and commissions who do choose to have it open, but if the request is made by the board to remove it, then we do so.
great. Thank you, Miranda. And thank you for the information on the fire department. Let's move on to the next item, which is the Big Springs Improvement Funding Resolution with Kate as well.
All right. Before you is Resolution 2022-18 and the funding of the NDDA Big Springs Improvement Project. During the 2022 budget process, the Big Springs Improvement funding was approved by the NDDA Board and the Board of Trustees. In February, the Board and the Board of Trustees approved supplemental funding. The attached resolution is needed to authorize the funding and make it available for eligible expenditures. So you have Resolution 2022-18 for your review and vote this evening. And the question before the board is, does the board support Resolution 2022-18 and the funding of the NDDA Big Springs Improvement Project?
This is the supplemental budget, correct? Or the
This
amended
is-
budget, whichever.
This is the total budget, because we had not gone to town yet to request what was requested originally when we began budget discussions. So this is for the entirety, including the funds that were approved last month. That's why you're seeing the resolution now and not last month, because we wanted to make sure that we approved what was approved by the board and what way we decided to go with wayfinding, and made sure that was all reflected.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kate. Let's go around and see if there are any other questions or comments from the board. Rhea, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't. I mean, I think we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
I mean, last month.
Yes.
So I don't.
Great, thank you. Danielle?
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
Steve Carew?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Ron already did. Steve Roundtree?
No questions or comments.
All right. Andrew?
No questions or comments.
Great. And Catherine?
No questions, no comments.
Great. Do we have any public comment? I'm not clear if Kathleen's hand is still up, or I don't know how the hand works. So Miranda, can you enlighten us?
You just took it down.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Great. Hearing no public comment, I would entertain a motion on this action item.
Motion to approve Resolution 2022-18 in the funding of the NDDA Big Springs Improvement Project. Second.
Great. And Kate, will you call the roll?
Steve Carew,
Yes.
sorry, Ray Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duarte,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you. And the next item is the grant funding request. Let me just get to that one real quick. The NDDA event funding request, and these are from Ned Gravel and Wild Bear, and Kate will introduce this.
Hi. And I believe we have representatives from both Ned Gravel and Wild Bear with us this evening. In February, we received 2 applications for event funding, and they are from Ned Gravel and Wild Bear Nature Center. Ned Gravel is requesting $1,000 for traffic and safety. The funds will be used for getting signs printed, paying Nederland Police and Boulder Rangers for traffic control, renting fencing, and paying certified flaggers. The total estimated cost is around $7,000. The total event costs are approximately $70,000. Ned Gravel is also requesting special event funds for some community benefit pieces of the event. The creation of a map to provide precedence through town is proposed, as well as a free kids bike safety course set up and provide a helmet to every kid that needs one. These would be free and open to the public. For Wild Bear, Nature Center is requesting $1,000 for special event funding to fund increased marketing for the Wild Earth Week events. This would include boosting social media ads, purchasing newspaper advertising, and printing flyers. Some important information for our financial consideration, there is currently $7,500 available in special event funding and $12,500 available in traffic control funding. These projects were approved as part of the 2022 budget, and as you'll remember last month, we granted money to Frozen Dead Guy Days. So if there's any, so the questions for the board tonight is, does the NDDA board approve funding for Wild Bear Nature Center? And does the NDDA board approve funding for Dead Gravel? I will turn it over for questions, or if Barb would like, she can open it up to have representatives from Ned Gravel or Wild Bear speak.
Okay. I think the requests are pretty straightforward, but I would be willing to have someone just give us a real quick synopsis of what they have going on with the events. I'm not sure who is on the call for those. Oh, I see Gavin. Gavin, would you like to speak?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you said, our request is pretty straightforward. I didn't know if there was a specific number for special event funding that I could request to give you an idea for like the creating a map for downtown would probably be around $1,000, as well as to bring in an organization to handle the kids bike safety course. That was we've been quoted around $1,500, so a total of $2,500 for special event funding. But obviously, we're happy to be here, happy to kind of potentially accept any funds that you guys are willing to grant to us, and happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Great, thank you. Let's go around the circle real quick and see if anyone has any questions. Rhea.
Did I hear something about a map of downtown Nederland?
Yes, yeah, we would. Our idea would be that we would work with a designer to create an illustrated map highlighting for our event specifically restaurants for our participants to go to.
So it's really a map that's going to be specific for your race. Okay, there was our previous meetings. There's some big discussions about a map of Nederland, downtown Nederland, and I think we have some, but it sounds like to me that this map is really specific for you guys. So I think that's fine. So
we do have a map at the visitor center that we can, and we have the file from town hall, so we could print that out anytime, and it includes every restaurant and the businesses in downtown. So if it would save you $1,000, maybe we could kick town hall $100 or something to print up enough for everybody that might be coming to town. But we do already have one, and it's pretty good. It's been updated in the last couple of months.
That's great.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I wasn't aware of that, but that would be great. Sure.
Okay. And Danielle.
No, my question was about the map and it's been answered. Thank you.
Thanks. Steve Carew.
No, I don't have any questions. I think that the aim was pretty clear, and I'm in favor of supporting it.
Great, thank you. And Ron.
Is this application only for traffic control, or is this map included it?
It's for both. Here, hold on, sorry, I had scrolled. For Ned Gravel, they're requesting $1,000 for traffic and safety. But then whatever would be, and we normally do around 1,000, like Wild Bear asked, for special event funding. But the traffic and safety is broken up at above as $1,000.
Okay, so the $100 or so for the map from town hall come from another grant. Is that correct?
Yeah, it could come from special event request.
Okay, just wanted that to be clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron and Kate. And Steve Roundtree.
No additional questions on this.
Great, thank you. And Andrew.
No additional questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Catherine.
No additional questions. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment on this? I got my list. Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion, and I think that it has to be a motion that would include the amount for traffic control and the amount for special event funding to be used for, you know, what they have listed here.
I
I'd
agree.
like to request 2 motions because the traffic control budget is totally separate from everything else.
Okay. Great. Would you like to make that motion, Ron?
Yes, I move both applications for $1,000 be approved for both for traffic control.
Wild Bear isn't requesting funding for traffic control. Wild Bear is only requesting special event funding.
Okay, I move just traffic control for Ned Gravel, and then we'll move to the next one and approve it.
Okay.
Great. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Great. Thank you. Kate, would you call the roll?
Yeah. Steve Carell,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duarte,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yeah.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Do you want a second motion for event-specific funds?
Special event, yeah. So since we did it that way, since we did a motion to approve the traffic funds for Ned Gravel, let's do a motion to approve special event funding for Ned Gravel and Wild Bear.
Can we do that at the same time, or do we want to do that separate too?
You could break them up if you wanted to, but it's the same pot of money, so you could do the same. You could use it in the same motion.
Okay. I would, let's see, I'm assuming somebody from Wild Bear is on here. So I'll make a motion for approving an additional $1,000 for Ned Gravel for towards the kids' bike safety course or whatever else they think would be beneficial for their events for $1,000.
Second.
And Kate, will you take the roll?
Steve Carell,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duarte,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Then I would open the floor to Wild Bear for just a minute to talk about what their plan is. I see that it looks like we have maybe Kat is on here.
Yes, I am. Hi. Good to see you all. Thanks for considering this. So yeah, the proposal we submitted is for to help with increasing advertising and outreach around our Wild Earth Week, which happens in mid-April around Earth Day. And it's a whole week long, but the primary set of activities is happening on Saturday, April 23rd. So the combo throughout the week, there'll be crafts and exhibits, an Earth Day film screening, live animal ambassadors with nature's educators, and booths from our partners, crafts and prizes. So yeah, I would imagine many of you have been to Wild Earth Week or Wild Earth Day events before in the past. And yeah, we're really excited to be able to have this happening again in person this year, and really think it'll contribute to public engagement and also bring a lot of folks to town who might not otherwise. So, but yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have, but yeah, really appreciate you considering this.
Great, thank you, Kat. And you said that's at the shopping center,
Yes,
not at
yeah,
the, okay.
sorry. Yeah,
Thank you
it'll
for
be
clarifying.
yeah, the focus will be at the nature center in the shopping center and the Eco Arts Lounge next door as well.
Perfect, thank you. Great, I will open it up to any questions or comments. We can go around real quick again. Danielle.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Kat. I am
Hi.
hoping that you could bring any printing up to Kaleidoscope Fine Art, who now has the printers from the Business Connection. So we
Oh.
could do the 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17, and a couple other sizes, and I'd be happy to bring you guys information for that. But I wanted to give you a heads up that we have that in the community and would be happy to help you with it.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, we have some in-house printing capacity at the Nature Center itself with our printers there, but I believe that we've used those printers, I guess, previously at the Business Connection for other printing. I'm not deeply aware of how our printing happens, but I can definitely pass that along to the folks who will be doing that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. And Steve Carreau.
Yes, I didn't have any questions for this either. I think it was well presented and I'm in favor of supporting it.
Great, thank you. And Ron.
I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Roundtree.
No questions or comments, but I support it.
Thank you. Andrew.
No questions or comments, and I do support it.
Excellent. And Catherine.
No questions, no comments, and again, I'm in favor.
Okay. And Rhea.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the requested funding from Wild Bear for their Wild Earth Day event. Second.
Great. And Kate, can you call the roll?
Yes. Steve Carreau,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duarte,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes. Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. And I want to jump backwards now because I completely skipped over Big Springs improvement next steps. And we did the funding resolution, but we did not do the next steps. And Kate is going to present that.
All right. So this evening is, as you recall, last month when we decided on some next steps for Big Springs, mainly what the financial path would be. Now that we have the supplemental funding approved, we had decided that we wanted to discuss the asphalt and whether we're going to award funding to town to do that project for us, or if we're going to keep it in the contract that we currently have. The notice to so that's framing from last month. So during the budget process, the funding was approved, and we've received our supplemental funding as well, and the notice of award was given to Edge Contracting. As we discussed at our board meeting last month, a decision on the asphalt piece of the project must be made so a change order can be initiated so that we can do that as soon as possible in this project, in this process. The town of Nederland is offering to do this piece of the project for a savings of approximately $11,000. So the question before the board this evening is, does the board support going with the town of Nederland for the asphalt piece of the Big Springs improvement project? Or does the NDDA board support keeping it in the contract with Edge Contracting as is? And as I mentioned last month, there was some discussion on this, but it was decided, given the several items that we were working on, that we would discuss it again this month. So I don't know how much more discussion you want to have, or if you just wanted some time to think about it. So I'll kind of leave that to Barb to help you discern.
Great. I think if we can ask if anyone has further comments on this or wants to make a motion on this, because we have discussed it before. Steve Carreau.
Yes, thank you. As I understood it from our last meeting, we determined that it was okay to wait a month, that we didn't need to make the decision last meeting, and we were hoping for a little more information, I think. So I don't know if the Andrew and Ron had a chance to talk with Nathan or anybody at JVA, because I thought that we were going to check in with them, for their thoughts on, is this $10,000 or $11,000 savings worth breaking up the project between two contractors. I think that was what was at the crux of it last month. So Ron or Andrew, I don't know if you did have a chance to talk to them or if you had any more input on that particular aspect of it.
Well, Ron and I had a chance to talk a little bit amongst ourselves about the pros and cons. And I guess, Ron, do you want to start off, or would you?
Sure, I'll start off.
Okay.
I'm a little upset that we didn't have this information much earlier on. And as a result, we're put in a position of having to make a fast decision on something that's really significant. That bothers me. Second thing bothers me is that when you split a contract like this, and there's scheduling problems, and you have one more layer of bureaucracy to deal with. And in my estimation, it's right on the line between not being worth it and being worth it. So that's my feeling, but I'm going to abstain from the vote.
And I guess my thoughts were, I agree that there is an additional layer of bureaucracy and more opportunity for things to be complicated and potential, finger pointing down the line should there, be any lawsuits or things. Just that it opens that can of worms. At the same time, I also know that it's important to public works. And so, and I think about, and thinking about, okay, well, what could possibly go wrong with, repaving, and why would this be, an issue to make more complicated? There, I know of like a company where there was a trench, in the road that hadn't been completely filled. It was just supposed to be temporarily filled. And again, looking, I know not every board member and not even myself is exactly clear on where the cuts would be and if they would all be roped off, but there's going to be certain times where cars will be driving over temporary patches. And there was an event that happened to two companies in the past where you had a subcontractor in charge with doing the asphalt other than the pipeline contractor, and a woman drove over this section that hadn't, that it was claimed that it hadn't been adequately compacted. It, she bumped her head, and there was a major lawsuit. Everyone got roped in, as in the asphalt contractor and the pipe contractor, etc. So, I mean, there are weird, random things that can happen out there. So from a liability standpoint, and less, ultimately people to be brought into a lawsuit, that's just something I think to consider. But I understand town's position, and I do want to help Public Works, and I also have seen the weirdest things and heard the weirdest things when it comes to construction law, and that's all I've got.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Steve, did you have further comment?
Yeah, I guess just to comment on what both Ron and Andrew said, and in particular, I do think that what Andrew was saying is the crux of it, that we want to support Public Works, and Emmett was pretty sincerely wanting us to have him do the work. So there is that side of it, and it's while it's a $10,000 or $11,000 savings for the DDA, it is money going to the town Public Works as opposed to a outside contractor. So I just wanted to point out that there's that side of it as well, where we could benefit the town Public Works by giving them work and also paying money back to the town rather than an outside contractor. But I am also somewhat concerned the way Andrew said about just the possibility for finger pointing and weird issues. If Public Works isn't able to jump on it as soon as they need to. But I would want to say that I think with Public Works being part of the town and being right here, it's likely that they, with good communication, that they could be ready to roll as soon as the concrete work around that is done. So it might be that there's not much time where it's sitting idle. Whereas with a contractor, that might be longer if they can't line up their asphalt crew.
Mm-hmm.
So not much clarity, but I just wanted to sort of point out more of the in-depth of the issues so we could all think about it and decide on a vote today. So
Yeah,
thank you.
And again, I just want to clarify. I don't think I wasn't saying that Public Works might not jump on something right away, but basically an ambulance chaser got involved in this, situation and dragged all these people into what was a frivolous lawsuit, but it did end up getting settled, and the plaintiff got a lot of money, and everyone, who was involved in the project lost. So that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does, from what Emmett told us last month, it does sound like it's a fairly straightforward project from his point of view. So, we have that on our side as far as supporting Public Works. Anyway, I'm not offering much clarity, but just wanted to point out some more of the details to think about for all of us.
I appreciate that, Steve. And I kind of want to circle back that, so we didn't explicitly ask JVA that question, but I think all the points that have been brought up really do kind of speak to the decision. And as Ron said, I think it's really, I don't think that we lose either way. It's just which way does the board feel to go? I don't think that there's huge pluses or huge minuses either way that we've discovered. And I think that's kind of what's come clear from the conversation. But I'm glad that you brought out these points.
I guess my concern is, as we go forward with other projects, that we not have surprise elements like this appear a month before the approval. This 200-page document that we got should have been given to us right at the onset, and it was not. That's my problem. And that was I don't know where, I don't want to point fingers now because I don't want to have a situation where we have a bad job by the contractor, so we're pointing fingers at him, or if the town has a mishap like Andrew described, and these things do happen. In construction projects, nothing ever goes the way as planned, but you usually get it done one way or another, but it takes a lot of working together. So as I said, I'm very ambivalent, and I'm very disappointed that we got forced into an embarrassing decision at such a late date. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ron. Does anyone else on the board have any questions or comments about this?
I have a question. This is Rhea. It's probably a question for Andrew, or maybe Ron. When the town paves, so this project involves some significantly deep digging to bury this pipe, this stormwater pipe. But all of that would be backfilled by the edge contractor, right? And the subgrade would be prepped prior to the town even paving, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm feeling like the liability is not that high because it's not like the town, it's not like there's going to be big open holes there that the town has to fill. They're just paving
No,
something.
no, but I think it would be the strips of cut in between the entrances to the Hub Ned and the Black Forest, where they are, compacted with dirt. Edge gets them prepped for asphalt, and we're waiting for town out of no fault of town. There's a day or two
Okay.
of rain. Some of the mud
Right.
washes away. A car pulls into one of the parking lot, hits what they consider to be, an uh, a negligent divot, and then again, totally random, but I'm only saying it because it's actually happened, so that's all.
What's your, okay, so Ron, I heard him say he's ambivalent, but what about you, Andrew? Which way are you leaning?
I would, from a purely, I'm not embarrassed about the decision or being last minute. And, I do want to support town, but from the part of me that's seen construction lawsuits and how everyone gets roped into them, I would not. I'm really torn. Like, I want to support it, but from a legal, I can't. I wouldn't. Like, my vote would be no, just to have Edge do it all.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks.
I
Thanks,
have another
Andrew.
I have another comment and kind of, I mean, with respect to, I really, it's eye-opening to hear some of what Andrew has, seen, and it's always valuable to hear that, which makes me say no matter who's doing it, it sounds like maybe they need to put up some no trespassing signs until, those slices that could potentially, somebody could drive across them when they're not ready for prime time yet, just to, again, make it to a point where somebody would actually be trespassing if they were to cross over into these areas before they are completed and open for use, no matter who does it, whether it's the town or whether it's Edge. But also, too, in having to deal with some not as big but similar-ish sort of projects, oftentimes it seems like you've got your contractor that you signed your contract with and they end up hiring a sub. And so in some ways, I feel like it's simpler to keep the town with it because then we're dealing with Edge and the town, not Edge, the town, and the town subcontractor for the asphalt. And again, going back to that, not only does the town want to do it, but eventually they'll be having to maintain or do any repairs on it and everything. So I think the liability aspect of it is definitely, it bears watching and a weather eye and doing anything that reasonably can be done to limit liability on these frivolous type lawsuits from
And,
people essentially driving where they aren't supposed to anyhow.
well, and not to interrupt, but yeah, I guess my understanding was always that the town was going to self-perform it, and not have a third, an additional subcontractor do the paving. So, with liability, it's all about risk transference and risk going downhill. So I think the more we could isolate and have things all in edges court, the better and the safer in the long run town would be from frivolous construction lawsuits related to traffic incidents. That's all.
For
I
the
also,
benefit of the board, I want to make a comment. We have a unique project here in that we're putting a lot of paving, a lot of asphalt over a tube that we're putting in the ground, and compaction is the key. If it's compacted correctly, this is one of the reasons I upped the budget for inspection by the engineering firm, is that I want them to be there on the day of compaction or the days of, because if it isn't done right, we'll get horrendous cracks in the concrete sidewalk and also into the asphalt. And again, that's where I hate to see finger pointing happen. And if we get a big crack in the concrete, it isn't going to be the town that we're going to look to pull it back up, recompact it, and put the concrete back. But if we got two contractors, with the town doing the asphalt and the contractor doing the concrete, then we have two repair jobs by two different entities. And it just, as I said, adds a layer of bureaucracy that, I'm sorry, to me is not worth $10,000. And I'd like to support the town too. And had it been written originally and we knew what we were getting into here, I would have said give the town a lot more supervision. But we are put in a position of supervising something that is a dilemma, and I'm sorry I can't support it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ron. It looks like Kathleen has her hand up. Is there any other comment from the board? I have no comment. Danielle or Steve Roundtree?
Yeah, this is Danielle. I have a comment about cracks in pavement. I know that in front of my business over at the Kathmandu Plaza, when they had done the sidewalk, I don't know who did the sidewalk, and I know that the road is CDOT's responsibility, but the situation that looked simple to put a small culvert in the sidewalk that drains to the road has become a catastrophe. I know that it's going to be a huge issue to work with Rasham, to work with the town, and to work with CDOT to fix it, because it is a huge liability of an ice patch that I am very worried about somebody falling on. And for me, the lease says that it is my responsibility to keep the sidewalk clear, and it is beyond my capability. And I would hope that having a contract would cover that. And the idea that there would be two parties involved in matching up such a seam and concrete pour in such a mountain town with the weather and the water and ice, it does concern me that something that could be simple, that looks right, like the sidewalk, can go wrong. And I like the idea that we keep the contract as simple as possible, even though that means taking away a job for our town. So I would not be in favor of giving it to the town because of that liability. I see where a lawsuit could happen over small cracks developing over time. And my concern is that it's done as efficiently and appropriately and can be followed back to one party to take care of a problem as efficiently as possible. That's my thought on it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Danielle. And Steve Roundtree, did you have any questions or comments?
No questions. I think the comment that I would have is, I think, starting out with one contractor in the bid process and then changing it, it feels like for the savings, that's a tricky thing to do with a contractor who put in a bid on an entire project. So that's my only kind of concern, would be just the transparency of what a contractor's bidding on from the start. And in today's environment, the probability of somebody it just doesn't seem like a good business practice to change the scope after the initial request is my thought.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. And I believe we have a public comment. Is Kathleen called in?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Kathleen Chibai. So I agree with almost everything I've heard when it comes to keeping it simple, staying with the contract that we currently have. I really appreciate the thought of staying local, but I want to remind this board that you all voted to hire a Miami wayfinding company to help us with the signs, and that's about as far away as we can go. I don't think any of you should feel bad about following through with the contract. I appreciate Steve's comment there at the end because I hadn't even thought of that aspect of it. It's bad business practice when you had a company make a bid and now to go back and change it. I also agree with Ron. I think it was late in the game. I agree with Andrew and whoever just, I think it was, I don't know who just gave the comment about the problem over at the Kathmandu sidewalk, but again, these things need to be considered, and since this is last minute change, because you guys actually did go get a bid on the entire project, I would stick with what you did initially, and in the future, of course, we would consider doing things locally first. But like I said, I think the most local and basic could have been the wayfinding project, and this board voted to go as far away as possible to Miami, Florida to hire a company to advise us when I believe we had capable local people. But let's not go local now because we're afraid to go outside, okay? Because we went outside of local when we did the wayfinding thing. So that's my public comment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen.
Barb, could I just comment on the wayfinding part of Kathleen's? Kathleen, it's a company from Pennsylvania, which is pretty far as well, but I just wanted to correct that. It's not Florida.
And I had one more comment as well. We did actually ask them to bid it both with and without the asphalt piece. So while these are very good points about putting it all and making it simple, it's not like there was no warning to the contractor when they bid that they might or might not be including the asphalt piece.
Right.
Thanks, Catherine. Andrew?
Well, I was just gonna make a motion if there's no other comment or if we're at that point.
I would love a motion if there are no other comments.
I'd like to make a motion that we keep the asphalt scope within Edge's contract.
Great, thanks,
Second.
Andrew. And I heard a second.
Yes.
And is there any further discussion? If not, Kate, will you call the roll?
Yes. Steve Carell,
Yes.
Ray Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duart,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Abstain.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
I'm going to abstain as well. I feel very torn on this.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. We have, let's see, we have a spot here for revitalizing main streets, and we're going to have Miranda just give you an update about this real quick.
Yeah, I'm actually going to ask for a motion to postpone to your April meeting. And so there's a couple reasons why. I wanted to talk with the grant manager because the Revitalizing Main Streets grant is now reopened, but it's a rolling grant. And so some of the components have changed slightly. And I was hoping to get with that grants manager before this meeting so I could share that information, and I did not connect with them. So in an effort not to be premature here, and since it's now a rolling grant, I'd like that there be a motion made to postpone since it's on your agenda. Long story short, though, what I would be doing in April is bringing back to you the Revitalizing Main Streets grant, focusing on the north and south side of the sidewalks on First Street. I know the original decision of the DDA was not to pursue this. However, we've been given some more details, specifically this court case that I've cited in the AIM, that are really prompting us to reconsider this. The BOT is in support of us moving forward with the grant. So we would be looking to come back to the DDA to ask for that 10% match. However, that match would only be $15,000 due to the new financial limits of this grant itself. So those are some of the details I wasn't able to get to today. So I am looking, Barb, for that motion to postpone to April.
I move that we postpone considering the downtown beautification grant until April.
Second.
And that would be the Revitalizing Main Street grant.
Revitalizing Main Street grant,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
So many of them, yeah.
There are so many. And is there any public comment on this? Or any other comment on this? I don't see any hands up.
I just wanted to ask, there was an item in the agenda packet that said that this was a revolving grant and that you could apply for it at any time. Is that still in effect?
Yeah, so when I brought this before you last time, there was that hard deadline, hence why we pulled together that special meeting. It looks like all the funds were not spent, and so now it is a rolling grant. The BOT is looking, though, for the town to apply sooner rather than later, and would be looking for the DDA to provide that match. And if you're not, and if you don't, then town will probably look internally within our own funds to see how we could make that match work so we could pursue this.
Thanks, Miranda. We had a motion and a second. If
And
there
we
are
have further discussion.
yes.
Commenting on this, as everyone knows, I have a plan that's not yet a formal proposal, and I would welcome the town, if that is approved, to work with me and produce a really wonderful pedestrian-friendly sidewalk amenity area. But just to put it through because of a fear of a lawsuit, this has been town's sidewalk situation has been 60 or 70 years, just as this is now. No studies have been done. No, there aren't any. I've looked and I've had a personal injury attorney look at my side of the sidewalks, and he doesn't see there's any place where somebody might trip and fall other than a puddle of ice, which could create a problem, and has in the past. I've had people attempt to sue me for unshoveled snow and ice. All have lost. So I think using a lawsuit where the city of Boulder won as an example does not necessarily prove the case in terms of going forward with this grant immediately, as opposed to working with me as a developer to really produce something nice for the town.
So Ron, I do want to caution, I don't necessarily, I'd like to postpone this so that we can have a further conversation that could involve that piece. I would caution, that unless you want me to present this right now, that I would recommend to Barb, we postpone this full conversation to
Yeah,
April.
I'd love to have a conversation. I think that'd be great. I'm having a little trouble hearing you for some reason, Miranda, so I couldn't quite pick up all the statements that you said.
I was just going to say, just because my request is to postpone this to April, I would like to talk with you and continue to assess some of these new components for this grant. And again, I apologize for jumping the gun here a little bit, getting it for you today. But in order to have a really robust and thorough conversation, I'd like to do that in its entirety in April.
I welcome that. I'm
Okay.
glad to participate.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Is there a motion on the table?
There's a motion and a second.
Yes.
And if Kate would call the roll?
Yes. Steve Carell,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
I'm sorry, yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duart,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, and let's see. That wraps up our action items for the evening. And we have, I'm sorry, Miranda, we have Cynthia here to make a presentation. Can we skip ahead to that item and do all of our reports last after we kind of go through any discussion items first?
And I think since we're looking to, again, just for sake of meeting procedures, since we're looking to move the discussion items before information and rearrange the agenda, I'd recommend doing a motion. But
Okay.
we are asking, Cynthia is also doing school tonight. And so we're hoping that maybe if you're open, letting her presentation before the information.
So just the one information?
No, I would move all of discussion if you could, yeah.
Yeah, we normally do seems backwards for some reason to have the reports above it. I would like to make a motion to move the discussion items up above the informational items for this evening.
Second.
Great, thank you. Kate, would you call the roll?
Steve Carell,
Yes.
Rhea Ortner,
Yes.
Barb Hart,
Yes.
Andrew Duart,
Yes.
Ron Mitchell,
Yes.
Danielle Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Roundtree,
Yes.
Catherine Vallon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And let's see. Sorry, now I'm in the wrong part of it. Oh, hold on. I'm in the wrong part of my screen now. Kate, would you introduce so that Cynthia can present?
Right, and I can, Kate, if you want me to.
That would be great, Miranda.
Yeah, so the town of Nederland is pursuing some designations through Solarize. We recently received bronze designation. And what that means is just that we're community committed to finding ways to implement or to permit and have solar throughout our community and trying to make that process easier for people. We're looking to go silver and gold. Bronze is not enough for us, but Cynthia got us to bronze, which is very exciting. So Cynthia put together a best management practices for solar promotion and tailored kind of specifically to maybe some things the DDA might consider. So she has a PowerPoint and was going to go through that and would love your feedback when she's done. And I know she's having some connectivity issues, so we're hopeful she'll be able to share her screen. But Cynthia, are you there?
Sure am. Thanks, everyone. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Give me 1 second. Did that work? Can you guys see that?
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't see anything yet. Oh, I see Steve.
Let's see.
When you click share, Cynthia, you should get a little box that shows up and then you'll double click the screen you like.
Look at you. You're awesome. Thank you. Can you guys see that?
It's working on it.
Okay.
Just as Cynthia shared.
Hey, there it is.
There it
There it
goes.
is. Okay.
Yahoo! All right. Thanks for having me tonight, everyone. And as Miranda said, I'm having some connectivity issues, all thanks to Net for what they do. I'm up in Ward, and I always max out, even though I have the highest speed with Net, it still kind of maxes me out. So sometimes the sound quality is bad. If I have to call in on the phone, I will, but hopefully we can go through this. You guys have a super packed agenda, so I don't want to take a terrible amount of your time tonight. I know you have other things. We're going to go through this with SoulSmart. What they do is help municipalities look at changes to zoning codes and how they can improve and promote solar. So as we go through this, obviously everyone knows there are a lot of benefits to solar energy in terms of trading that out for fossil fuels. So there's a lot of benefits there. The benefits are myriad and sundry. As we know, there's a lot of different benefits in terms of cost savings and for the environment. Investments, there are incentives right now. There's a federal incentive, I think it's at 26%. Next year it'll drop to 22 for homeowners to have solar energy systems. So certainly if there's an opportunity to install solar systems, we want to see that happen more. The American Planning Association, Solar Pages, they note that a lack of inclusion of language in zoning codes and comprehensive plans constitutes a major barrier. So the comprehensive plan needs an update. COVID really sideswiped the grant funding for that when we were looking at that in 2020. And our last update was in 2013. We are probably looking at 2023, 2024 timeframe to update the comprehensive plan, but we could look at the zoning code and see what changes could be made sooner. So this is a discussion before the Planning Commission. We went in January and February to talk to them about that. As noted on the National Renewable Energy Laboratory study, those codes for municipalities that have solar in their code, they tend to have more installations. So when you see the language in codes, there's more support within the municipality and more installations. Under the best management practices that SoulSmart put together that both Miranda and I watched, we have now achieved the bronze designation, and we're looking to get to silver and see if we can't reach for gold. We have gone before, like I said, the Planning Commission. We're looking at that forthcoming comprehensive plan update and considering ways to eliminate barriers by defining solar energy systems and considering any inherent obstacles within the zoning code. So these definitions are taken from SoulSmart, directed from their best management practices webinar. And if anyone's looking for more information, I can certainly provide links for you to watch that webinar. So these are potential definitions, although we'd want to tailor them to Nederland. On the next slide, you know, when we get into the size of these systems, 40,000 square feet of surface area for a large scale system would take up an incredible amount of space in Nederland. So I don't know that these definitions as they stand for sizes is appropriate for NED, but that's something to be considered. And then basically I'm asking the question of, do the definitions feel accurate? Any additions to the definitions desired? Any subtractions, changes, that sort of thing? We have no definitions for solar energy as it stands in the zoning code. Then we get into zoning, explicit zoning considerations like maximum height. Those are considerations for roof mounted, also for ground mounted systems in terms of what's allowed. The maximum building height across all districts for main structures, 35 feet. And then as you see from the various districts that are broken out with detached accessory structures, it is different. So the larger districts of mountain residential, usually an acre in size and low density, usually 16,000 square feet in size. Those are a little bit higher. And then the smaller, medium density, high density neighborhood commercial, which I appear to have spelled wrong, central business district, general commercial and industrial are all a little bit shorter. So looking at, should there be exemptions or allowances to exceed the maximum height? The Board of Zoning Adjustment does have a tier 3 energy reduction variance potential. I have not seen one in almost 9 years of working for the town. I think maybe the community center went through something for their roof to have those solar panels on their roof. I'd have to research that a bit more. But I'm asking the question of, should there be exemptions, allowances to exceed it? Are there little caveats like by structure type, whether it's a principal or accessory, structure location, lot size, residential or commercial? Maximum lot coverage, that's impervious surface. So this image shows where buildings or garages, presumably where it shows the vehicular use area, that's concrete or asphalt. All of those things contribute to impervious surface, which means you'd be changing the water patterns on the site that can create more drainage and erosion. So there's a maximum lot coverage. It's by percentage in each district. The larger districts have a smaller percentage, and that's based on the individual size of the property. So 15% of whatever the specific size of the property is. And would solar systems be exempt from lot coverage standards? So obviously, in the case of roof mounted, it's not really a consideration, but for ground mounted, that may be a consideration. And there was discussion at the Planning Commission of, do solar panels in a ground mount constitute impervious surface? Water would run off, and I've done some research. There's a farm down in Boulder, and they're looking at agricultural co-usage with solar panels, so planting directly under community solar gardens and having, it's a beneficial thing in the mountains to reduce the UV rays on plants, helps to protect them, and so maybe it's not actually impervious surface, but something to consider. Setbacks are another aspect of zoning. And this is an illustration really kind of showing what setbacks look like. There's side setbacks, front yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks. And those are based on the district that you're in. So these front/street setbacks, they are the same for all districts. The intention there, I believe, when that was adopted in 1981, the zoning code, the intention is for front yards. But as you can see, for side setbacks and rear setbacks, there are differences between a principal main structure and accessory structures. In the case of those accessory structures, sometimes it's very small. You see in the medium density, high density, neighborhood commercial, central business district, general commercial industrial, those are very small setbacks for an accessory structure. And that could be a ground mount, that could be a building. Same with the rear. And the rear setbacks in different districts. So you see the principal setbacks for Maine are pretty big in those larger districts, and then they whittle themselves down to smaller districts. And then the rear setbacks for accessory structures can be pretty small. So an encroachment can go before the Board of Zoning Adjustment for setbacks to request a variance. Should there be any specific caveats, like a distance to a property line? Vision clearance is something that the Planning Commission talked about. We all know areas in town where you are trying to turn onto the highway or other places, and there's a big old sign, and it makes it hard to see things. So we always want to consider vision clearance. Certainly something that I consider when I'm looking at sign permits. But that would possibly come into consideration for ground mount solar. So just some thought process. By asking these questions, I'm not trying to create more barriers. I just think it's an opportunity in the planning process to really give consideration to any potential impacts. So we think about them beforehand. but I don't want to create more obstructions to solar. Nederland Municipal Code Section 1674 is projections from buildings. It allows up to 3 feet into required yard or open space for architectural features. Should solar be considered an architectural feature? Is a question. Any caveats for vision clearance? Performance standards mention different types of impacts, emission types, dust, odor, gas, fumes, vibration. Glare is one of them. In the Soul Smart Best Management Practices, they talk about solar panels not causing more glare than windows. Should it be called out as not applicable to solar panels? I think there's a caveat when it comes to airports, but in general, when the Planning Commission discussed this at the February meeting, they talked about how maybe there could be glare from one side of town to another and affect people on the other side of town. Seems like that would be fairly time limited in the morning when the sun's coming up or what have you, but something to consider. And then any zoning considerations that were not previously mentioned. I think I opened the wrong presentation. But basically, the Planning Commission wanted us to bring this to other boards and ask what specific concerns they may have. I think with the DDA, you'd be looking more at commercial solar and how to promote solar on businesses. Rick Henriksen is part of this conversation here, and he looks from a fire perspective at access around the solar panels so that the fire department, when they're fighting fires, if they have to punch a hole in the roof, that they have access around the panels. In some cases with our built environment, he's made exemptions. I think he'd like to do that less with businesses if possible when they're adding solar. But that may be something to consider for the DDA of if there's interest in how to promote solar in the future. Maybe that's part of a comprehensive plan update. Certainly solar energy, water conservation, hazards and disruptions, those are things that we'd like to add to the comprehensive plan. But for the DDA, whatever your specific goals are regarding solar, we'd love to hear them and see what you guys think. But the Planning Commission would also be interested in any specific feedback you have regarding what I'm presenting and any obstacles, any impacts that your board can think up, and any concerns that you want specifically mentioned. And I can certainly do my best to answer any questions that anyone has on the slides and or zoning.
Great, thank you, Cynthia.
Sure.
I don't have any questions right now, but let's go around the board and see. I think that there's a lot of great information here, and I'm not sure exactly how it fits into the commercial stuff, like you're saying, because we're a little bit different. But I think that, you know, a lot of us live around the area, and this is good information to have overall. Let's go around the board real quick and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Let's start with Rhea.
Oh yeah, put me on the spot first. I mean, I don't know. There's tons of information in here. How much does a variance cost?
A tier
Someone-
3 is less. I believe it's $250. That's
Right.
for energy use. So if we were talking about something explicitly for solar, whether it was needing to encroach into the setbacks or roof height consideration, something like that, then it would be the tier 3 variance. So it's a lesser variance. I haven't seen any in 9 years.
Okay. I mean, I
And
just was thinking, you know, sometimes solar, maybe it does have to encroach on the setbacks, and it would be nice, you know, sometimes variances can cost $1,000. It'd be nice if somehow we could have reduced fees for any kind of variance needed for someone wanting to put solar in.
appreciate that. There's certainly a time frame involved with obtaining a variance. You're going before the Board of Zoning Adjustment. The only appeal to their decision is before district court. And they would look specifically at, you know, was what the Board of Zoning Adjustment did fair? You know, were there any preconceived notions and those kind of things? Was the deck stacked against an applicant versus do they agree with how they decided? There's specific criteria with variances. A lot of times people don't come forward. It's a board that meets quarterly. We rarely have applications because of the specific 5 criteria. And a lot of times people feel like if I could just go without the variance and just work within the parameters in some way and change my design, then it's going to save me time, money, and energy. And so we don't see too many
Right.
variances in a given year,
Okay.
but I think
Okay.
I appreciate the comment on fees.
And then the other thing is, I think you asked the question, should solar panels count towards lot coverage? And I would say no. I feel like, you know, most of the ground mounted solar panels are on a post. And so the actual square footage of where you're covering over the ground surface and decreases infiltration is very small. So I would say, if you're asking us, my opinion is solar panels shouldn't count towards lot coverage requirements for the
Thank you.
criteria.
Great, thanks, Rhea. And Danielle.
Thank you for the presentation, Cynthia. I don't really have a lot of know about putting solar panels in, but I am interested in talking to Asham about it and seeing if she would consider her new roof and her old roof over here at the Kathmandu Plaza and restaurant. So I think I will do what I can to bring it to her. Thank you.
You bet.
Great, thanks. Steve Carew.
Yes, thanks, Cynthia, for the presentation. And I don't really have any questions or so. It's a lot of information, and I breezed through it before, but not able to take it all in. I would agree with Rhea as far as lot coverage, because I know that was a big deal for us when we were building our building, you know, where we could put sidewalks and were we able to pave our truck lanes and things. And I think that with the solar panels, they're always at an angle anyway, so the water's going to run right off them and, you know, go into the ground below them. So I do agree with Rhea on that one. But otherwise, yeah, I'm just all in favor of making it, you know, reasonable zoning that will entice and allow businesses and individuals to add solar to their buildings. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. And Ron.
I have no comments.
All right, Steve Roundtree.
Yep. Thank you for the presentation. Great information. No other comments.
Great, thanks. Andrew.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Cynthia. A lot of information there, especially, you know, kind of thinking about building codes. And I would agree with Rhea that solar should not count against lot coverage. And you know, I might I know there was, you know, one mention of, you know, only certain times, occasionally glare affecting, you know, adjacent properties. And, you know, there's a couple around town that I can think of, but again, I'm kind of generally for less, you know, regulation when it comes to solar, but certainly maybe an angle of incidence so you're not blasting, you know, an immediate neighbor with, you know, bright light. That's all. I mean, I think just I would be more concerned about, you know, the adjacent you know, 2 or 3 properties, say 500-foot radius, than I would, beyond that. But that's all I've got. Thank you.
You bet.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And Catherine.
So there's a lot of great benefits and also just aspects that maybe I've never needed to consider when I've tried to look into solar for my own home property and everything, and living outside of the town of Nederland. Some of the setbacks and some of the various zoning issues weren't something I had to consider. And so this is very eye-opening, and I agree about that the coverage should not count for all the reasons both that Steve and Rhea said. I have a very basic question, and that's when I've looked into this myself and having a family member who's actually studied sustainability and things like that, I've been looking into solar, and I came up with some concerns when I was trying to look into it. Um, I'm all for green energy and really want to be able to find ways to get more green energy. But what I had discovered, at least when I looked into it a little less than 2 years ago, is that the cost of installing solar and the offset of what it ended up costing me, it took 20 to 25 years to offset the cost of installing it, and that was the lifespan of the panels involved. And so then you would have to replace the panels, but they weren't recyclable. Has anything improved along those lines to make it to where it feels like a more affordable, sustainable choice? Because filling up, landfills with unrecyclable solar panels that just got around to paying for themselves really kind of deterred me from moving forward, at least at my own home.
You make a really profound comment. I don't know if they are more recyclable. I know Rick Henriksen had said he installed solar panels, and there's been a lot of improvements to panel absorbability, such that at 5 o'clock, facing east, his panels are still picking up power. But I don't know about recyclability of the panels. There are websites like Energy Sage where you can enter in information and see if, about the payback period, that kind of thing, like based on your energy bills. What is that looking like? Are you a good candidate for solar? There's another website, Desire, like capital DSIRE, USA, which looks at incentive programs for solar. When Commissioner Billy Giblin told us about it, it pulled up like 59 different options for Nederland. But I don't know specifically about, if it's not a good candidate for solar because the payback period is not suitable. Is that just going to leave more panels in landfill? But that's something I'll have to check into. We're going to be looking at solar. The Planning Commission would like more in-depth through a subcommittee, consider different impacts. And it'll be myself and Miranda Air Thorley on the facility advisory. She is the sustainability coordinator. Melody Baumhover also on the SAB, and a solar expert. I have a lady who's used to work for Namaste, and I believe she's also worked with solar regulations. She lives on Hurricane Hill, and she's going to be taking part in the conversation. So I think it would be a good question for Whitney.
I really hope that the answers come back good, because I really want this to be something that happens and works. So,
I hear you. Thanks for that comment. I hadn't heard that before.
sure.
Great, thank you. Do we have any public comment? I don't see or hear any here. Cynthia, is there any survey out there that, once we can delve through this information a little more as well, should we email you if we have additional comments, or what's the best way for us to reach you?
Absolutely. You can email me. My email is Cynthia B, CYNTHIA, B as in boisterous, at netherlandco.org. One dot between the co and the org. Cynthia B at netherlandco.org. And you can certainly reach out with questions, comments, any feedback you have. It's a lot of information. I understand this board doesn't necessarily speak zoning as their first tongue. And some of these concepts, you know, although they may be very specific, I think if you live in Nederland, it's good to understand the parameters that happen with private property. So I understand it's just a lot to take in. So if you have questions, the additional sources there, soulsmart.org, that is who we received the bronze designation from. And we're looking to get silver and gold. There's a lot of information like that. Toolkit for local governments has a lot of information. That's planning and zoning. It also talks about permitting, the Sustainability Advisory Board with the town had done a Solarize campaign last year. They learned some different things from the Solarize campaign and want to relaunch the campaign and have more vendors. So hopefully there's going to be other ways that we can promote solar in the town and figure out how to incentivize solar, perhaps waiving our portion of the permitting fees, the town's portion, and considering other ways that we can promote it. But certainly the obstacles, a lot of the obstacles they see is with planning and zoning and permitting. How can you improve this process, make it easier for contractors, make it easier for homeowners and people to access information, understand the benefits, and see support for it at a planning and zoning level.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the great presentation as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Someone to the screen from me.
I got it. I'll take it.
Thanks, Miranda.
Great, thank you. That brings us to our next discussion item, which is parking in the Central Business District. And sorry, that will be presented by Miranda.
Yep. So we've talked about this before. We brought this survey to you before to ask for your feedback. So thank you for those of you who responded. We did finally release this. So we are asking for feedback by Friday, the 11th. So if you have not had a chance to complete the survey, now is the time to do so. But tonight, I think we were hoping to just have a really informal discussion about when you think about this survey or some of the questions asked, what are things that you really feel like town staff and the Board of Trustees need to really zone in on when addressing these parking? So it's kind of, I was hoping, Barb, maybe we could just do kind of a popcorn. Tonight is not the night to resolve those issues. I think we're just hoping to absorb what you see as our problems. And if you have some recommended solutions, we'd love to hear those too.
Great, thanks, Miranda. With that idea, let's just go around and if anyone has a something they want to bring into the conversation of their own parking experiences or their business parking experiences in town, let's go with that. And this
Sorry,
let's
I just wanted to test there. I accidentally dropped the call. Am I back? Okay.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello, thank you.
Let's start this time with Steve Terrell.
Yes, thanks, Barbara. And Miranda, I think this is a hugely important topic, and on the wayfinding committee that we met last week or the week before, and we're actually really interested in seeing the results of these two surveys. So that's one thing, if you'd be able to forward those to me, I'll share them with our committee and discuss that. But in general, one of the big things I feel in Nederland is if there's any way to get where, especially along First Street, where we have a lot of businesses and very few parking spaces, if there's anything we could do to get the employees of the businesses to park elsewhere and walk over, since they're going to be, their cars will be there for 6 or 8 or 10 hours. I think that would really open up First Street a lot if we don't have employees parking on First Street. I don't know the method, the best way to do that. But I also feel like part of that is, and I know this is a touchy subject, but if we had paid parking, even along First Street or in particular lots, I think that would, absolutely eliminate people, employees from parking there. And then you have the enforcement issue. But anyway, it's a very in-depth topic, but I do feel like our town it's not so terrible that you can never find a parking space, but First Street seems to be an especially bad area. And if we could at least get all the employees to not park on First Street, that would probably free up a lot of spaces, especially because the people who come to First Street won't be staying there all day. In that case, they'll, stay for an hour or two at the most and move on. So I guess that's my main comments on this.
Cool. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, and I do want to just clarify, this will not be the last time you see this. So, as more comes up, this will be in front of you quite a few more times as we start to dive into what is the solution here.
Great, thanks.
Great, thank you. And Ron.
I'm going to be prone to drone on, so you can turn me off if you want to when you feel like it. There's a problem. Let's just go to the first one. To solve the employee parking, enforce the 2-hour zone that's right now. Everybody knows that there's no enforcement. The co-op's van last week was parked for 4 days on First Street, and I think they did it just because they didn't want to park in the snow and walk through the snow. That's one thing. So I saw something in our, as I went through the packet, that the town garage site could be made available, or the old town garage site, for employee parking. That would mean a 4-block walk, but it would also mean turning over those parking spaces 4 to 6 times a day. And on the average, you put a value on a parking space, and then that value is created by the number of times that a car pulls in and out and what the average that car would spend. So if you have a turnover 6 times a day and an average of $25 spent each time, that's $150 a day that parking space is worth, or about $75,000 a year in sales. But if a car parks there 4 days, you have zero value on the thing. So I think the first thing we really need to consider is enforcing the parking. The next thing is the safety issue. There are so many near misses and so many things, and I think it's fortunate that lots of people walk up First Street, because that slows the cars down to a crawl and helps the safety aspect, that nobody can go down First Street at more than 3 to 5 miles an hour. But I think that the cars are angled in wrong and they should be backed in. And of course, everybody knows I'm a back in enthusiast. And if they were backed in at an angle pointing to the southeast, every driver would be able to see every person and every car coming down. As it is, when they back out now, they can't see anything. Most people have learned to back out really slowly. So those are 2 things that could be done immediately. Wouldn't take anything but a quick resolution to create the turnover that we so desperately need. And this follows exactly on what Steve was saying. This is an answer to his questions. And I suggest that rather than, like anything else, slamming it through, that we run a test period, say this year, from Labor Day, or from Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's what we did when we made First Street one way. There was a lot of brouhaha, it wouldn't work and it shouldn't be done, and rah, rah, rah. And we ran the test from Memorial Day to Labor Day. But when Labor Day came around, everybody forgot that that was supposed to be end of the test. And then 7 years later, somebody discovered there was never any ordinance to change the part or the town street to one way. And so it was successful and has been successful fairly well as a one-way street. But still, it could be very much improved in terms of safety by just backing the cars in and turn them around at a 90-degree angle to where they are now. And I suggest do the same thing. Try it. Bill it as a test. Say, you know, we want to see what happens. And for the first week or so, you'd probably have to hire a flagger and monitor it. And people are resistant to change. So you get grumbling, but nevertheless, it's a proven fact. Study after study has shown that back-end parking is far safer. So that's two items that I want to put forward. And the other thing is that every mountain community around us, I don't know, but I'm sure there's some smaller ones that don't charge for parking. But Steve's right. Yeah, it's touchy. But here's what happens. If the money from the charging for parking, like the DDA's statutory mandate, goes right back to improvements in the area where the meters are, then it really gets acceptance. And that's one of the things that sells meters is put the money right back where the meters are so that it increases the sales. So this is something town sooner or later is going to have to consider. And I think sooner is better than later. I have a lot more, but I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
So Ron, there's that survey. I would click on the survey because then you can add all your extra thoughts in there.
I put all these things in the survey.
Okay.
You don't mind because my answers are the most caustic of anybody's.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for taking the survey.
Thanks, Ron. And Steve Roundtree.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree on the employee parking. That's something that we've done at Eldora at peak times to try to open up spaces. I think one of the challenges there is the amount of effort to enforce it, and I don't even know how that would look with multiple businesses. That could be really challenging. But the paid parking maybe just solves that across the board. So I think I'd be a proponent of that. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And Andrew.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I'm up for trying things. So in that sense, I think things are worth trying. But yeah, that's employee. I'm. Let me. Is there anyone else who needs to speak first? While I try and kind of distill what I'm trying to say into a couple sentences, or am I the last to go here?
Absolutely. Catherine, would you like to speak? I know where she went. I think we lost Catherine. Actually, I don't see her name on the list right now, unless she's the call-in user.
I see her. I don't know.
You do?
Oh, there we go. Sorry,
there
I
it is.
forgot to unmute. I was just rattling on and on. So, I was just saying, I kind of think, as much as we wish we didn't have to, that probably metered parking, at least down in the, in the downtown area is probably going to end up needing to become a reality at some point, and it will encourage turnover of cars. It's got its upside, it's got its downside, but it's probably going to become necessary evil. If there's if there really was a good place for the employees to park, that would be better. We kind of run into the same sort of problem over at the shopping center, at the clinic, where, you know, people trying to have their employees not park in other buildings, come park along the street where we're trying to have our employees park, so that we can leave room for our customers. And so, you know, we end up with, you know, somebody's truck parked right across from the clinic, right where we're trying to have our employees park, and it's there for a week or two and stuff. And so, you know, it's a problem that goes all over the place, and we start, you know, trying to open up a space in one area, but we end up clogging up somebody else's space in another area. And the fact of the matter is we've got limited real estate. So there's no obvious and simple good solutions. And, you know, all we can do is try and tackle each area individually and do the best we can with them. I think that, you know, the surveys again are going to help really see what people notice from various areas that maybe isn't as obvious to all of us. And that's all we can do is just try and tackle each area and figure out what's the best possible solution.
Great, thanks, Catherine. And Rhea.
What this whole issue and survey brought up to me was parking code and requirements for the number of parking spaces required for commercial businesses when, especially for new buildings. And I think that it might behoove the town to take a hard look at the parking requirements to see what we can do to promote development of more commercial businesses and hence sales tax income and property tax income. And to just, I don't know the last time they were discussed, I'm not that familiar with them, but maybe they need to be relaxed a little bit in the central business district. So that's, I don't have any specific comments about that, but I think that that is something that is worthy of a discussion. I remember hearing something about when Sean built the Kathmandu addition, there was a big issue around parking, right? Having enough parking. And I feel like the downtown should be not for cars, but for people and businesses and helping to generate revenue for the town to make this a really vibrant community. That's all.
Great, thanks, Rhea. And Danielle.
Thank you. I think this is a great survey. I'm very glad that it's going out. I like the idea of testing a couple parking options on backing in. I think it would be a good idea to have paid parking. My only little comment about that is I kind of miss the quarter parking meters, and if there's something that has options with that. Down in Boulder, I got frustrated with some of the parking meters and confused too, but that might just be me. I look forward to seeing how this survey comes back and what we learn and how we can utilize the space that we do have and make it more efficient and user friendly. And I do think that if we have the paid parking and we have a higher turnover, that people are going to be moving faster, and it will be more important to have better sidewalks to navigate that traffic flow, which is all moving in the direction of more people coming to our town, which I know some people are nervous about, but I think is inevitable, and I am glad to be seeing these changes underway. So this is great. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Danielle. And Andrew, did you have any further comments?
Just, yeah, I think in the meantime, enforcement's going to be a big one, and you know, ultimately, it all ties back into, you know, I think the holistic, you know, development of the north side of First Street, and parts of the south side of First Street, and sidewalks and the loading zones. And in the meantime, I'm up for, you know, trying things, and I think enforcement's going to be tough, but until we, you know, see kind of a big holistic approach that tackles everything. I'm up for trying just about anything because seeing how dangerous it is for people to walk in the street, especially right now, let alone summer. People go a little faster. Winter, it's icier, hard to see. But I'm not trying to sound like a negative, too negative, but that's all I've got right now.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Do we have any public comment on this one?
I'd like to make public comment.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Kathleen Chipeye. So I have reviewed the survey like 5 times, and every time I review it, I say to myself, well, the questions, I appreciate the effort, but I feel like the questions are so vague, and the questions, to answer them with any kind of significant impact, people need to understand the codes and the parking and the history of Nederland and when it comes to parking. And so I'm not confident that the survey is going to produce much other than people's opinions, and I don't think that their opinions are going to be based on the reality of the code. But I appreciate the effort, and I haven't filled it out yet, but I will probably fill it out, and you'll probably be able to detect which one is mine, Miranda. I agree with Ron Mitchell's ideas about the backing in, and I'm saying that because of personal experience. I was driving my husband's Tundra, which is an extremely large truck, and I was going down first, waiting for somebody to pull out of a space, and I had people behind me, and this local totally backed up right into my truck, his truck, even though I was beeping the horn. So I don't like the backing out. I've listened to Ron and seen the studies that he has about backing in, and I do agree that the town doesn't have to do anything on First Street except change the direction in which the cars are being parked, and I think that we should give that a try. It was my business that ended up having a van parked in front of it for 4 days without being moved, and I don't appreciate it as a business, especially when it's a big van and so it blocks the front of my store. I also think that the DDA should consider, I have a pole that's not very pedestrian friendly with a 2-hour parking sign right in front of my business. I mean, smack dab in the middle of the sidewalk. I've seen dozens of people walk into it since Paul Carroll put it in. And since we're not enforcing anyways, I'm actually going to ask law enforcement to remove the sign and maybe put the sign on the railings of the pedestrian walkway there on First, instead of and myself once walking into that pole and seeing other people walk into that pole. I don't like having poles around if we're not even enforcing. I do hope that I think that paid parking will take care of the enforcement issue, and I agree with whoever said they would prefer just putting quarters in and having the little arrow say paid or not paid. I would prefer an old-fashioned, old-school parking meter where you do pump coins into it, and I think that would be appropriate for Nederland and quirky in a way, but yet simple enough for people who have change. And I would appreciate that, but I think that's the only way we're going to get employees to stop parking along First Street. And I appreciate the efforts, but like what was said, there is no additional space. Right now, from my understanding, the CBD is exempt from parking requirements right now because the code says you can build your building up to the property line. So you know, you can't have, the code's conflicting in many places, and one of them is this parking code. So we can't create land. My only hope is that we do add stories above the park and ride parking, or that the town figures it out and Ron Mitchell gets his development of First Street and puts parking underneath. But aside from that, I don't even like telling people in the residential areas that they need to have parking in front of their houses, because that just pisses people off, and I understand that. So to me, the only hope is building up at the park and ride, or Ron developing, and because ground level, we should have businesses creating retail sales tax in the CBD. It should not be parking unless it's going to be underneath or above. So, and we don't want to waste the above and lose our views for a parking lot. So to me, it's below. And that's the only hope in creating new land for parking. I'll shut up. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Great.
So, yeah, so I know, thank you so much for all that feedback. And I am going to follow up with PD about enforcement. I think everyone knows, you know, one of our challenges is just being short staffed, but and Kathleen, I'll also just connect and see what they can do about that sign, as just kind of our two maybe takeaways I could work on now. And then otherwise we will incorporate your feedback here into what goes before the Board of Trustees. We'll review the survey results. Oh, I'm sorry, and David has a comment, but we'll review the survey results at the March 15th meeting, but I'll also share them with the DDA. And then Barbie of David for a public comment.
Great, thanks. And David?
I'd like to repeat what some other folks say, and that is that employees parking for their shifts on the street takes up an awful lot of potential parking spaces. And I also don't think it's that hard to enforce, since it's the same people doing it all the time. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Great, thank you, David.
I'd like to make a parting shot. I think the current parking code and ordinance impedes parking solutions rather than helping it. And I think it should be totally eliminated and start over. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Ron. Miranda, does that give you a little bit of direction from us? And I'm expecting we'll see this back in the next couple months with a lot more information from the survey.
Yeah, so when we review the survey with the Board of Trustees, we'll get further directive on how to keep moving forward. My guess is maybe it'll kind of get broken out into maybe different pieces we work on, but we'll get further directive, and DDA will be very much a part of that conversation.
Great, thank you. That brings us to our next discussion item, which is the Bryant House. Danielle?
Thank you. So I was reading through this, and when I got to the committee feedback, I thought that was the end of the agenda. So I'm kind of surprised that this was on here, and apologize that I didn't read through it more thoroughly. The Brighton House has been gone over with the Historic Society, and we have been trying to figure out what best to do with the situation that is terrible. There seems to be a lot of investment in having updated the building, and the updates have made it not so historical anymore. So the Historic Society can't really do a whole lot with it. And the fact that it is on the land for the RTD means that we can't really do a lot with it either. So where we're at in trying to figure out what to do to not have it be such an eyesore is invest in having a test for asbestos, so that we can either make it look a little prettier on the outside and buy some more time on what to do with it, and if it can be made into something that generates income for the town, or if we want to figure out how to handle it with asbestos or not, and maybe disassemble it for the parts that are worthwhile to keep, like the logs are the most historic part. Maybe they could be utilized towards other historic buildings that need to be renovated. And so we're basically just wondering, what does the board think? Is this something that we can bring back with more information and get your feedback? Is this something that we would be willing to invest in getting a test for asbestos and then having an engineer tell us what would be the easiest and most effective way to just maintain the building so it looks a little bit better, so that we can buy more time in figuring out what to do with it? Or if it would be most cost effective to remove the building. And we also had somebody suggest donating it to RTD and letting them deal with it. And then there would be the question of, will they do anything with it, or will it just remain an eyesore? So what I would really be looking for tonight is feedback from each of you that I can bring back to the historic committee and see where we're at in trying to move forward with an idea.
Great, thanks, Danielle. We can go around the circle real quick. I love the RTD idea. That's awesome. Maybe that's who should be taking care of it, but that's just a personal opinion. Let's start with Steve Carreau.
Yes, thanks, Barbara. So I wasn't quite sure what the issues were here that we were supposed to address. I see the questions before the board, though. And I guess one of the things I was wondering about is, are we allowed to keep it where it is? And was this mostly about like just making it look better? Or was that one aspect of it?
Yeah, so the property is owned by RTD. I think that I forget who owns the building. I'm getting a little tired too and trying to remember things. And
Nederland owns the building.
okay, thank you, Ron. And then the Historic Society has a lease on it because they're hoping to do something with it. And so they're potentially wondering about renewing that lease. However, where the building stands, it is not usable. The insides are renovated to where there is plumbing. It could be utilized if the outside were updated, and that would be new siding, a new roof, and a new stairway so that it could be used. So the quickest solution would be kind of a beautification project where we make the outside look nicer so that it's not looking terrible and depressed. And then we figure out from there. But the problem with that is it would take money to put into making it look nicer. And in the long run, do we have an idea of how to earn that money back? Or do we want to look at other potential solutions that would not be sinking more money into the building?
Okay, thanks for that sort of synopsis. I guess I feel like we have a pretty full plate with the DDA at this point, and I don't feel like super inclined to try to take on this as a project right now, but I don't have a really strong opinion on it. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And Ron.
Well, I have some personal invested time in that building, and that Dan Martin and I, about 6 or 7 years ago, in the middle of a snowstorm, put a 40 by 40 foot tarp over it and screwed it down so we could save it, and we did. And but nevertheless, here's what I think: RTD owning the land is not going to look at a long-term solution. So we might have to be willing to take a risk and propose a short-term solution. And it's going to have to be a solution, I think, that RTD benefits somehow by, and also benefits the immediate community. And one of the things that RTD did is they provide a restroom for their drivers, but nobody else. So when people get off the bus, interestingly enough, they park around town near restrooms so they can walk to the restroom near the restaurant. And they too take up parking space all day long, just so when they get off the bus after the half-hour ride up here, they can run to the restroom and then head home in their car. Well, I think if we were to consider proposing to RTD that there be maybe a short year, 10-year term, and we would fund, and my opinion is, even though I helped save the thing, now it's so dilapidated and so uh, uh, in such disrepair that you're going to have to take it off. But the foundation and the plumbing and the electrical are all new. That was put in when it was put there, and then it languished during this 20-year lease and nobody did anything. So I think that we could look at that option, get RTD to maybe give us a 10-year period, and we would end up risking $300,000 or $400,000 that they might do something in 10 years. But I doubt it, because their studies show that we don't need any more parking at that site. So that's what I would like to propose that we consider. And Steve, I agree with. We've got a lot on our plate, but nevertheless, I think it's worth talking about long-range projects early on, so that we all get on the same page when the time comes to do something and we have an idea of what we think should be done. But I do know that it irritates the Kathmandu and the bakery and others nearby when those people disembark and first thing they do is run in and take customer space up using the restroom, and they don't buy anything. So I'm very much for putting it on the long-term agenda. And, you don't get anything from RTD unless you go sit in their lap. And I personally would be quite willing to sit in their lap and help Danielle see if we can't get some sort of commitment out of them, because they're in the driver's seat for sure. Thanks a lot.
Great, thanks, Ron. And Steve Roundtree.
I don't think I have any comment on this one.
Great, thank you. And Andrew.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Catherine.
Well, I love old buildings, but this one does look pretty dilapidated. But I wonder if some local people, we have adopt a highway programs for, the Cub Scouts to decide they're going to go clean a section of highway and stuff like that. I wonder if there's any way to generate any public interest in helping see this become refurbished and less of an eyesore on the outside. And again, like Ron said, if there's something in it for RTD, if it can be made into a space where there can be a bathroom, since there is plumbing and electric, where they could rent out to a small coffee shop, or, let a food truck park next to it or something like that. It would be nice to, have it not be an eyesore and to instead be something that generates town interest in restoring a piece of history in a decent way, especially if there's some way to get some volunteer and some donation money, a donation jug in the N bus. I don't know, where people could put an extra nickel in if they wanted to. I think it should be on the long-term project, like a couple people said, to kind of keep an eye on that. It's not as critical as some of our projects that are coming at us more quickly, but it sure would be nice to see something positive happen there, even if, just the cosmetics. So I think, yeah, getting tested to see if we're dealing with asbestos and exactly the scope of what it's going to take, and then trying to find ways to maybe feel out the possibility of public interest in helping see this happen, where, some town pride could go into it as well as whatever we're willing to put into it.
Great, thanks, Catherine. And Nerea.
Um, what exactly is the ask here from the Historical Society? I know they've put a bunch of time in it. They want us to take over the project, or they want funding, or what's the overall ask here?
They're wondering if we have any interest in putting forth help for it. Yes. Is there any funding? Is there any suggestion? Is there any hope of working with us to help them with the project?
I mean, I think, I guess, okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. I think that time is very limited for everyone that's on this board. We have so many other projects. Is something that we would potentially provide funding for. I don't think it's off the table. If it's something that would benefit our business community, then sure, I think it's potential. But I think we need a little more detail of what the potential uses could be and how it could make money. So those are my thoughts. But I don't have time to really do beyond any kind of subcommittee dealing with this, and I'm not sure anybody else on this board does either.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did want to add one thing. Danielle had mentioned that Emmett asked, for me to try to throw a number for exterior kind of beautification, and which brought up, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I'll try and make this quick. The fact that, A, we'd need to verify, see if there's any asbestos, and B, have a structural engineer see what it would take to allow the walls and the roof to receive new material. And now if we're 2020 building code, that being ignition resistant construction, and the fact that really the historical component, would it be exempt from current ignition resistant construction codes? But just to, yellow pad, I think, just to do the bare minimum, make it look like a a nice building from the outside that was completely as is inside. We're probably $100,000 to $125,000, and then to get beyond that, and have it be something usable, bathrooms, etc. More. And if we're talking historical codes, right? I know there's not necessarily, or I believe there's not necessarily historical codes that apply to this, but the fact that just a large capital investment is something that RTD has frowned upon. So it seems like it's in the wrong spot. And just to do the bare minimum, I would budget no less than $100,000. And, beyond that, it seems, if it's really important to everyone, then in my opinion, it would need to be moved somewhere where it could be designated historic, and get grants, etc. And like you said, I don't have a lot of time to necessarily deal with this. We've got a lot on our plate, but it's just, unfortunately, a lot of things are lining up against the project coming to volition. That's all.
Great, thanks, Andrew. I just want to throw in, because Andrew has had the discussions as well as Danielle with Emmett, and I have had a lot of discussions with him on this. And the tiny bit of that house that is historical, we'll never designate it as a historical landmark. So I kind of am more on the other side of, we don't have time to take anything new on right now. I don't have, personally, I don't know who's going to invest the time in this and researching grants and everything else, but I don't see it being a priority for us. I think that if the town owns the building and the Historical Society has an interest in it, that might be a discussion they have to have, but I don't personally see it as a DDA project from my standpoint. Since this is just a discussion item, I think we're just here to gather information on whether or not we want to move forward. um, if anyone wants to move it forward, I suppose, we'll listen to it again, but this is the third time in my time on the DDA that we've had almost the exact same discussion, and we haven't taken it on. It's a lot of work, and it doesn't seem like, to me, it fits under what we're doing with the current projects we have and have to finish this year. That's my thought on it. I don't know if anyone else has any additional information to add, but I think it's kind of a point of, I'm not sure anybody wants to really tackle it at this time.
Okay, I'll speak up. I'm interested in working with Danielle to see if there is a solution to it. And if the board and the DDA do not want to put it on the long-term agenda, I would hope that you would not exclude me and Danielle or anybody else who's interested in working on it from doing so. So I'll put that option forward to you. And since it's a discussion item, that's not something we're going to vote on, but I really want to see something happen to that building personally, and I'm willing to put some effort into it. And since all of you were throwing cold water on it, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Would you like to bring it back in a few months, Ron, with additional information?
Sure, I'd be glad to, because I'll go down there and annoy RTD until they give us a decision one way or the other.
Great, that would be wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your feedback. I will bring this to Emmett and the other people who are trying to put something together to take care of this dilapidated building, and all of this feedback is very important in helping us find direction with it. And thank you, Ron, for being on board. And thank you, Andrew, for your input on all of the information and numbers that you have been giving us. So thank you guys for the time on it.
Great, thank you, Danielle. That brings us to our final discussion item, which is hopefully a pretty quick one. You can see in the AIM that this is a special event survey, and it's really just, I am proposing that we do a special event survey. It's been talked about at multiple BOT meetings. We've talked about it at DDA meetings. So I'd like to put a survey out to the public, basically asking what people think as businesses, as residents, as people that visit Nederland. What do they think about events in town? So my questions to you are what we should have on the survey. I just threw some in there to kind of have an idea. And then when do we put it out? I think we put it out sometime after Frozen Degi Days, but maybe this comes back to the board next month anyways. If everyone wanted to give feedback tonight or by email would be fine on what they think should be on the survey, then I could bring it back and we could put it out, right after our next meeting in April to the community, after Frozen Degi Days, before summer, and kind of get a pulse of where everybody is at of what we should be doing with events in town. We included a sales tax revenue history. You guys saw this last month as well from Rita, and that should be included when we talk further about it. But that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if you want to go around the circle or what are your thoughts? Let's see. Steve Roundtree. Is he still there?
Yeah, sorry, I was having a hard time getting unmuted for some reason. This one's, it's kind of a tricky combo of things, I feel like. I mean, I think it's a great idea to try to do a survey. Just the content, I don't know. I think it's such a mixed bag depending on if it's to businesses or citizens. And, you know, I guess like the parking one, maybe it's a split thing or something. I think it would be really hard to pull together a survey that would, I don't know, provide actionable results. That doesn't mean that it's not worth trying, but I feel like there's so many different opinions on different events, and so I don't know. I feel like it's a tough one to come up with some actionable results, is my opinion right now.
Thanks, Steve. I agree. There are so many different opinions, and that was the hope, was to start gathering those opinions from all different angles so that we're trying to figure out as a community what to do with this issue that we're having. We love events. We want more events. We have issues with having events. There are so many things going on in our community with people talking about this. It seemed like it would fit in with the DDA a little bit more than specifically the BOT, since we really represent the businesses. So that was my hope, was that we would be able to put something together to put it out to the community and really represent the businesses and get their opinions out there, but also the people that are frequenting the businesses and or festivals or events that might come here and what their expectations are. So it could turn into something that is not actionable. It could turn into something that is a starting point of having a much larger community conversation. Andrew.
If you could give me 2 minutes or 1 minute, I do have stuff to add, but I need 1 minute.
Okay. How about Catherine?
Okay, so thinking about how Nederland is laid out, we can lend ourselves to certain types of events. You know, people can run or they can bike, or we can have musical festivals. But for instance, we couldn't have a rodeo. We don't have a rodeo arena. If we tried to have, you know, Highlands Games, which would be silly because we're so close to Estes Park, we don't have a place big enough to have a caber toss. I mean, so there's certain limitations that again go with our parking and what our public spaces are. And, you know, I'm in a different kind of business than the kind of businesses that mostly benefit from the events, you know, as a caveat to admit to right up front. I mean, I have to close my clinic on the first afternoon of Frozen Dead Guys Days because my patients can't find any place to park to come in for their appointment. And they have to park halfway up Big Springs and walk to their appointment 30 minutes late. So events don't probably hold the same allure to me that they do to businesses that benefit more from them. But I also do just feel like, you know, we have certain kind of logistical and geographical limitations to what sorts of events tend to be able to be offered in Nederland. And so, you know, I think that probably it's good to get some kind of information from what sorts of things people wish they could see in Nederland. But, you know, we may get a bunch of answers that could be unrealistic. What if, you know, 80% of the population says they'd like to have a rodeo? Now what?
It's true. We shouldn't have taken down the rodeo arena.
Exactly.
Peter Park is now.
Anyhow, that's all I've got anyhow.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. And Rhea.
I kind of want to bounce off what Steve was talking about earlier. I mean, right now the process is that somebody who wants to host an event just comes to the town and pulls a permit and checks all the boxes, and it's approved, they have their event. I mean, what are we looking to do? Like, if we get a lot of negative feedback, are we looking down to lessen the number of events? Is that going to come into some kind of ordinance the Board of Trustees would pass? Saying, oh, we can only have events on certain weekends, or maybe the opposite. Maybe we're going to try to have events all the time. I don't know. I mean, I guess surveys can hurt, but I guess I just don't understand. What are we trying to gain from doing the survey? Like, what's the overall goal? Are we, how's
Just
it going to change anything?
yeah, just information. That's it. Information to gather and share back to the BOT and other boards who deal with events. Obviously, we deal with events because we offer funding to some of them, so we're on that edge of it, and all of our
Right.
businesses
Yeah.
benefit or
No.
don't.
Or maybe we could add questions in terms of not related to whether an event happens or how many, but saying how can the events be run better? What are the negative impacts you experience? What are some changes we can do in terms of running events to make them better? You know, maybe specific questions like that.
I would love an email from everybody on any specific questions they have so that I can put it together to bring back to the next meeting. That was my hope tonight, was to open the conversation and then from there to go into what is the next step. Maybe it's just we gathered this information, here you go to the BOT, and then we're not part of it. I don't know, but just to gather, is it okay for us to be gathering the information as the DDA? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I would say no, we should not do an event committee in the DDA. I'd rather have outside organizers do the events and then come to us for funding or help. That's my opinion on that one.
Great, thank you. And Danielle.
I like the idea of getting more information. When I first moved here, I was just a resident, and I definitely heard about a lot of people not liking events because of traffic, because of parking, because of rowdiness, and it's a community where most of the people who live here like to be quiet and enjoy the scenery. But now that I have a business and it's a duality of a business where I have clients come in for treatments and we do by appointment, and so we need parking. And when there are events like Catherine was talking about, the parking's not as available and it's tricky. But I also have my art studio, and with the gallery in town and showing artwork across town, the events are going to be rather strategic for getting art sales. And coming at it from those three perspectives, there's a lot of differentiation in the feedback that you'll get. And I think that this goes along with the need for parking update and regulations, because people will be able to voice why they don't like events or why they do like events or that they miss events. And then we can get an overall feel better than just word of mouth and overhearing stuff. This will give us more of a feel for what people think overall, and I don't see how that could hurt. So I think it's a good idea to rack our brains about some good questions, not to get negative feedback, but how could it be better and what people would like to see done. So I'll rack my brain for this.
Great, thanks, Danielle. Let's see. Andrew had additional comments he wanted to make.
Well, I guess this goes back to not being a DDA committee, but I feel that, having not reinventing the wheel for every event, and maybe I'm slightly ignorant, and there is a protocol with events and the systems in place regarding parking, and but I think that being a little bit more I guess streamlining all the processes related to parking, police, security capacity, traffic flow. And I realize that not all of them are the same and they don't all, but I guess, maybe that outside committee that can, really work as a springboard to help help town work with businesses and and create, you know, a system, if you will, for everything. If that makes sense. That's what I wanted to share.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew. And Ron.
Well, this conundrum has surfaced many times. And so I've watched carefully, and I would predict that if you ask the registered voters of Nederland who live in the town limits if they'd like to have events, you'll probably get 80 to 90% no. And there's some reasons, and I've not done any scientific, statistically accurate studies, but I've done a lot of interviews and discussions. And this is one of the reasons I push so hard to have a budget for traffic control. The single biggest problem and the single biggest complaint of the locals is when there's an event, it takes a half an hour to get across town, or you can't get into the shopping center, or you can't get to the hardware store, you can't get into the bank. So if you have a question on your survey, what can we do better? And or one after this season is over and we've spent our very small $20,000 budget on traffic control, and you asked a question, do you feel that our instituting traffic control for your events helped to mitigate the slow flow of traffic and helped you out? And I would entertain that would be a good question. I feel very sure if you ask, and I've talked to one board member here who, and there are many people I've talked to who do the same thing. They just go somewhere else during Frozen Dead Guy days and rent a hotel or something and enjoy some other place. So I think it's going to be really tricky in terms of what you ask on a survey. And I think some businesses will say no. And ironically, in 2017, during Frozen Dead Guy days, Rustic Moose did a $60,000 day, but yet Jonathan Beggs, who owns Rustic Moose, is not in favor of events or ever closing the street. He just wants things to go on the way they are. I'm not even sure he realizes how much his gross revenue increases during those events, but that's his position, and I find it strange. So I think you'll probably get, if you have that kind of survey, as what yes or do you want events, yes or no, there'll be a whole overwhelming vote for no. But yet the businesses that have to survive, weather like we've got tonight in Nederland, are desperately in need of these events. And those folks don't really realize that, understand it, or care. So structuring a survey that would tend to inhibit events will get lots of support. It'll get overwhelming support. So I think that's my prediction. And I think a survey needs to be, as two or three, I think Ray and somebody else mentioned, what can we do to make it better for the events? And I think one of the answers is going to be more traffic control and better parking plans. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ron. I would love that information through email as well, and because I think it would be really helpful. And I definitely don't want to encourage or discourage anything. I just want to see if we can start gathering information to open that conversation up with the community. And we have a call-in user. Is that for public comment?
Yeah, Kathleen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thanks, Kathleen.
Okay. Yeah, Kathleen Chipai again. I'm not sure. I appreciate inquiry about festivals, but I don't think a survey is going to accomplish much. I agree with Ron, though I don't believe it's going to be 80 or 90% against festivals. I think it'd be more like 60 to 80% against. But I want everyone to realize we're talking about, at least in the 30 years I've been in Nederland, it's never been more than 12 days of the year, of 365, where there are festivals. And so I just want to point that out. I mean, what's the point of the survey if people say they don't want festivals? Well, my goodness. So we go from 12 days, which hasn't even been in the last 4 years, 5 years, actually. It's been more like 6 to 8 days of festivals a year. And I will say that when we've looked back at the financing, there were economic bumps, what they call them, at the time of sales during DEGI and NetFest. And as a business owner, I make a bunch of money for NetFest, but I don't make, not NetFest, for Frozen DEGI days, but I don't make almost any money. I have a slow days for the art fair and slow days for NetFest. I usually close. I'm so slow, I close and go enjoy NetFest. And so, but it's not about my business, and it's not about anybody's one business. The town is making money. Somebody's businesses are making money. So when we have people complaining, and I know the food co-op sometimes said they can't stand DEGI, but honestly, the businesses need money no matter whose business it is, and you go with the flow. I used to vend Sturgis, South Dakota Motorcycle Rally 13 years, and almost the entire town of Sturgis leaves for about 3 weeks, and they rent out their houses, their yards, every space in town, and their entire community, which I think the regular population is 6,000 to 7,000 people, they make all the money for their town in that 1 3-week period in the summer. They don't really have anything they need to do beyond that because of the retail sales tax. And people just have to deal with it because that's what small towns do. They make it work. We're a mountain town. We love outdoor music. We love outdoor festivals. We love mining festivals. We love art festivals. We love environmental festivals. I don't think we need to be asking people whether they like them or not. It's, like I said, no more than 12 days of the year. And people, in my opinion, can learn to deal with it. And so most of these festivals, like I said, aside from DEGI, I don't make any money. I actually make lower sales on all the other festivals, but I'm in no way, shape, or form against festivals. We need festivals, in my opinion. And I would like to work with you, Barb, on this outside of the DDA. I don't think there should be a DDA committee on this unless there's going to be festivals thrown by the DDA in the CBD. Then there would be a need for a committee, but I don't see that happening. I see the only hindrance to festivals in town is the apparatus that has been put up around them and the requirements put on them by the town government, the town administrator, starting in 2011 with Alicia. And it honestly started in my backyard at 95 East First Street when at the time, the code said if you want to have an event, talk to the town administrator. The people, my husband and AJ, went and talked to the town administrator at the time, and she said, no, you can have an event on your private property, and you can do all that because it's been done there, you're zoned properly. And then that town administrator left, a new one was brought in, a new clerk was brought in, and the day before the event they tried to shut down the event, telling me I had to insure the town of Nederland for $2 million, even though it's on the exact same lot that the current Nederland Farmers Market is operating on. And that festival, that's one thing I want to say about festivals, the enforcement needs to be equal amongst all the festivals, because Harvest Fest for the Farmers Market has been able to close down 2nd Street and Schneider Street in a previous year without any permitting, any going through the paperwork and the nightmares and the insurance and the parking and the porta potties. Heck, they don't even have to do the liquor thing. Everything gets freebie to them.
Kathleen,
So that's my complaint. I want some enforcement.
just a reminder
equally
that
of
there
the
is 3
paperwork.
minutes for public comment.
Okay, but the paperwork needs to be cut back, the requirements of the festivals need to be cut back, and the town needs to encourage festivals instead of attacking them as they have since 2011.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen. I will get in touch with you and I will take this out of it as a DDA item for now and consider doing it in a different way, just as a business owner and somebody who can connect with a lot of people, like I did for the 4th of July, which, by the way, people voted 50-50 in favor and against, and that was a big event. So I will bring it back or just take it out as something that I can do as a not DDA item, just as a town item, because it sounds like that might be a better idea. And then if we get good data, I can bring it back to the DDA and the BOT and we can discuss it further from there. So thank you everybody for your really good comments on this one. I know it's a difficult one and I'm just looking to open
Blakemore has her hand up.
Thanks, Miranda.
I don't see Karen. Karen, would you like to? Where is she?
Yes, I'm unmuted.
So
I do see some benefit from a survey to get some qualitative data on the economic benefits or drawbacks of events. I think we can look at the sales tax revenue to get some quantitative data. And that's what I had to say.
Great, thank you. So I will leave that be for now, since it was just a discussion item, and I'll think about it a little bit more and see what would make sense to bring back or do in a different way and then bring back. That brings us to the end of our discussion items and just to our information items. Our information items start with the chair report. I don't have anything to add to my chair report at this time. It's in the packet, so I'm good with moving forward to the treasurer's report.
I'm sorry, were you calling for treasurer's report?
Yes.
I have just one comment. In the executive director's report, there's a one-line statement that we all need, and this has come up before time and time again, and that is that by having made open-ended commitments 2 and 3 and 4 years ago, we are forcing ourselves to impound funds that we could put forward to projects. So we need to be very, very cautious of how we allocate the funds and that we not commit the sin of making open-ended project commitments. It's really painful in the exchequer. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Ron. And then the executive director report.
I don't have anything to add as well. I just appreciate you reviewing.
Great, thank you. Back up my list here. And town staff report.
So same thing, my report is in your packet. The one thing I did want to highlight is that we are getting ready to move to hybrid, where you can do, people can be in the room at the multi-purpose room at the community center, and then you can have members who can't be there participate virtually. Our ask of the DDA is that you at least have the majority of your board at the community center. These new systems take a long time to set up, so we don't want to be setting it all up for one board member. So Kate will be doing, when she does quorum, she is going to ask you whether you plan to attend in person or virtual, and then depending on how many we have in person, we'll make the decision of whether it makes sense to hold it solely virtual because we don't have enough in person, or if we will in fact do the hybrid where people can be in the room and people can be on WebEx. The virtual system will allow two-way communication. So the person on the screen will be able to talk with the people in the room and vice versa. So bear with us, as there will probably be some hiccups, but the plan is to test out the hybrid meeting system on the March 15th Board of Trustees meeting.
Great, thanks, Miranda. That is exciting. Let's see. Then we have beautification committee report.
And I put that together, and that was just mostly to give an update on the RFQ for the gardener, which closed February 28th. One application was received. There was feedback from interested applicants that it was difficult to respond to the RFQ. So the committee, in conjunction with the chair and the executive director, decided to repost the RFQ, and the closing date is now March 30th. I have worked directly with the individuals that had difficulty accessing the RFQ so that hopefully they can respond this time. But the interested individual that did respond in time for the previous RFQ has decided to continue on. I did contact them and ask if they wanted to keep their application in the mix, and they want to continue to be in the process. So our hope is to possibly have 4 candidates by the end of the month.
Great, thanks, Kate. And the Big Springs Committee, Andrew or Ron, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report now.
We kind of talked about Big Springs a bit.
Yeah.
Committee. Committee is Catherine, and I will work with Catherine on that for a while. We're not really doing a whole lot on that one right now, just figuring out what the role will be. Catherine, do you have anything further?
I do not.
Thank you. Communications, there's information in Kate's executive director report about what's going on with the website. And we'll bring a little bit more information back to the April meeting. Performance-based committee, is there any report on that?
No, I have Chris Perret was going to email me and set up a time along with Tanya of the BOT, and there I have not received any emails, but I will reach out to both Chris and Tanya and see if we can get something moving here so that I can have an update for the next meeting.
And Andrew, Nikki Dunn would really like to be a part of that meeting when you
Okay.
have, so add her in.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
And public art.
So there's a couple things to add to that. Greg is close to finishing the mural, and we are working on how to get the protective UV coating on it. We have a couple people who are going to join our meeting tomorrow that might be adding to the committee, and we have sorry, drawing a momentary blank here. I did want to update something. But I'm drawing a blank, so never mind. Nothing else to add to it. Thank you.
Danielle, this is another one that Nikki would like to be involved in, especially the covered bridge artwork. So if we can group her into that those future discussions, that'd be great.
Oh, that's what it was. The estimate for the covered bridge was submitted, so that has been moving along well. And we are going to be hoping to publish our call for artists for the other projects, and we're wrapping that up tomorrow and hopefully submitting it to the paper on Friday.
Great, thank
So
you.
I'll just look for an email for Nikki Dunn's information and connect with her. Thank you.
I'll send kind of a connecting email for you too.
Okay.
And then Andrew, I guess, sorry, really quick back to performance-based. Nikki has already been in touch, I think, with Tanya. So it's just a matter of getting her in on your meeting.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Steve Carew, he had to leave the meeting a little bit early, but he had sent just a really quick wayfinding update that they're waiting on the results of the parking survey to help guide wayfinding. So at the next meeting, he expects to have more information for us on what is going on with wayfinding.
And I think my only, just really quick, we did submit the tourism management grant that was acknowledged as accepted, and we should hear back ideally by the end of March if we are awarded that $20,000 to go towards wayfinding.
Okay, great. Thanks, Miranda. If there is nothing else, let's see. To officially, is there any other business this evening that anyone wanted to bring up? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.